In the startup world, mergers and acquisitions are often portrayed as endings. Headlines announce exits. Founders ring bells. Investors celebrate liquidity. From the outside, an acquisition looks like a finish line crossed. But books that examine M&A from the inside tell a far more complex story. Deals are not endings. They are inflection points, moments where strategy, psychology, and power intersect, revealing what a company has truly become. Most startup acquisitions do not begin with bankers or spreadsheets. They begin with relationships, a partnership that deepens, a competitor that watches closely, a customer that becomes curious. Long before formal interest appears, signals accumulate. Founders who understand M&A learn to read these signals early, not as guarantees, but as indicators of strategic gravity forming around their company. One of the first myths dismantled by M&A literature is that acquisitions are primarily about price. Valuation matters, but it is rarely the deciding factor. Buyers acquire for reasons that are often asymmetric to what founders expect: talent, technology, market access, speed, defense. The same company can be worth wildly different amounts to different acquirers depending on strategic fit. Founders who fixate on headline numbers often miss leverage hidden in alignment. Another uncomfortable truth emerges quickly. Most acquisitions are driven by urgency on the buyer side, not ambition on the sellers. A product gap must be closed. A competitor is moving too fast. A technology shift threatens incumbents. Startups are acquired not because they are perfect, but because they are timely. Books show that founders who understand the buyer's pressure negotiate from strength. Those who misunderstand it negotiate blind. Timing, in fact, is the silent driver of all great deals. Too early, and the startup lacks proof, leverage, or options. Too late, and growth slows, competition intensifies, or internal complexity erodes appeal. The best exits occur when multiple futures are plausible. When a company can credibly continue independently or integrate successfully, optionality, not desperation, creates power at the table. Another recurring insight is that M&A is as much about people as it is about assets. Acquirers evaluate founders as future leaders, not just deal counterparts. How founders communicate under pressure, how they handle ambiguity, how they respond to bad news. Books filled with post-acquisition reflections emphasize that trust, once broken in diligence, rarely recovers. Culture fit may be intangible, but its absence is painfully concrete. Due diligence, often framed as a financial audit, is better understood as a stress test of truth. Numbers are verified, but narratives are examined. Customer concentration, churn dynamics, technical debt, legal exposure. The startups that navigate diligence well are not those without flaws, but those without surprises. Transparency builds credibility. Concealment destroys it. The literature is blunt. Deals collapse more often from mistrust than from metrics. Another theme that surfaces repeatedly is control. Founders often underestimate how much control shifts the moment exclusivity is signed. Negotiation power decays with time. Momentum favors the acquirer once alternatives narrow. Books advise founders to preserve leverage through parallel conversations, clear walk-away points, and disciplined pacing. The art of the deal lies not in aggression, but in restraint. Earnouts and retention packages reveal another psychological layer of startup, M&A. On paper, they align incentives. In practice, they test identity. Founders move from owners to employees. Autonomy gives way to integration. Books show that many post-acquisition failures stem not from strategy, but from misaligned expectations about power and pace. Deals succeed when roles, authority, and decision rights are explicit from the start. Another insight that surprises many founders is how internal dynamics shift during acquisition talks. Teams sense distraction. Morale fluctuates. Performance can dip at precisely the wrong moment. The literature emphasizes that secrecy must be balanced with stability. Leaders who manage this period with clarity preserve value. Those who let uncertainty spread erode it before the deal is signed. The role of advisors also emerges as decisive. Lawyers, bankers, and mentors shape outcomes not just through expertise, but through judgment. Good advisors slow founders down at the right moments and speed them up at others. Bad advisors optimize for transactions rather than outcomes. Books repeatedly warn that founders must remain principals, not passengers, throughout the process. As negotiations progress, another reality sets in. Not all deals should close. Attractive terms can mask strategic dead ends. Cultural mismatch can poison long-term outcomes. The most respected founders are those who walk away when alignment is absent, even at personal cost. M&A literature honors these decisions quietly, noting that reputation compounds long after any single deal. And this is where the story begins to narrow. Because once founders see that mergers and acquisitions are not trophies but transitions demanding clarity, humility, and foresight, the question changes. It is no longer, how much can we get, but what future are we choosing, and at what cost? It is at this point, where ambition meets consequence, that the true art of the deal reveals itself, testing whether a startup understands not just how to be bought, but how to choose what it is willing to become. As negotiations deepen, stakes rise, and the path forward splits into possibilities that cannot be undone. Unfolding with tension and intent. Like unfolding with tension and intent. Like a chessboard where every move reshapes the endgame long before checkmate appears. And this is where mergers and acquisitions in the startup world reveal their most misunderstood truth, not as financial victories, but as irreversible strategic choices. In the second half of the M&A journey, the spotlight shifts from negotiation to consequence. Once terms are agreed and signatures dry, the real work begins. Integration, alignment, execution. Books that study post-acquisition outcomes are unambiguous. Most deals do not fail because they were overpriced or poorly negotiated. They fail because the transition was misunderstood. A deal closes in weeks. And integration unfolds over years. One of the first realities founders confront after an acquisition is loss of narrative control. As an independent startup, the story is yours. After acquisition, the story becomes shared and often reframed. Priorities shift. Messaging adapts. Metrics change. Founders who struggle most are those who expected continuity without compromise. The literature shows that successful transitions begin with psychological clarity. The company you built no longer exists in the same way. Something new must be consciously constructed in its place. Another decisive factor is decision velocity. Acquirers often move slower than startups are accustomed to. Layers of approval replace instinct. Risk tolerance drops. What once took days now takes weeks. Books emphasize that frustration at this stage is normal but dangerous. Founders who interpret slowness as incompetence disengage. Those who understand it as structural adapt. They learn when to push and when to wait. This patience often determines whether influence is preserved or lost. Culture, long discussed abstractly, becomes tangible immediately after the deal. Meeting styles clash, incentives misalign, unspoken norms surface. The most successful post-acquisition stories involve founders who become translators, helping each side understand the other without judgment. The books note that cultural integration is not about dominance. It is about mutual legibility. When teams can predict each other's behavior, trust follows. Earnouts and retention periods introduce another layer of complexity. Motivation shifts subtly. When upside is capped or delayed, energy can fade. Founders who thrive during this phase redefine purpose. They stop working for payout and start working for impact or legacy. Those who cannot make this shift often burn out quietly. The literature is clear. Earnouts test meaning more than money. Another often overlooked element is what happens to customers. Acquisitions promise synergy, but customers experience disruption. Product roadmaps change. Support channels shift. Trust is fragile during transitions. Books show that deals that protect customer continuity preserve value. Those that treat customers as assets rather than relationships erode goodwill quickly. Founders who advocate fiercely for users during integration often leave a lasting mark. Over time, the best acquisitions fade into normalcy. The startup's technology becomes core infrastructure. The team influences strategy beyond its original scope. The deal is no longer discussed, it is assumed. This invisibility is the true marker of success. Integration that draws no attention is integration that worked. And yet, not all founders stay. Some leave at the first opportunity. Others remain for years. The literature resists prescribing the right choice. What matters is intentionality. Founders who leave thoughtfully preserve reputation and relationships. Those who disengage abruptly damage both. M&A is a small ecosystem. Memory is long. How you exit and exit shapes what opportunities follow. The deepest lesson the books converge on is this: acquisitions reveal values. Under pressure, priorities surface. Integrity is tested. Ego is exposed. The art of the deal is not mastering tactics, it is mastering self-awareness, knowing what you want, what you can accept, and what you will walk away from before the room gets quiet. This is the true ending of the story. Mergers and acquisitions are not shortcuts to success, they are forks in the road. Chosen wisely, they amplify impact, accelerate missions, and unlock scale that independence could not reach. Chosen poorly, they trade freedom for regret. The difference lies not in valuation, but in clarity. If this reflection resonated with you, pause and ask yourself one question. If your startup were acquired tomorrow, what part of your identity would you struggle most to let go of? That answer reveals whether you are ready not just to sell, but to choose your next chapter. Share that thought. And if you want to keep exploring how founders navigate power, transition, and legacy beyond the headlines, stay connected. Subscribe, follow, and return. Because the best deals are not the ones that look biggest, but the ones that still feel right long after the celebration ends.